This is the story of people who lived around here 2,000 years ago. It begins at the time the Romans came in AD 43.
This land has been farmed for over 3,000 years, and when the Romans came, they would have found Celtic tribes farming all over this part of England. Of course, then it didn't look like this. This area would then have been covered with square fields, each smaller than a football pitch. We know this because, until modern ploughing destroyed them, they left marks like these all over the downs. Dotted among the fields would have been small farming communities with thatched round houses like these at the Butser Hill reconstruction near Petersfield. They cooked on an open fire, and the smoke went out through the thatch. They ploughed the land with a wooden plough called an ard, similar to this one. They needed light, easily worked soil to grow wheat, barley, oats, peas, and beans. They kept cattle, pigs, poultry, and sheep, similar to these modern rare breed animals. On simple wooden looms, they were able to weave rough woolen cloth. Animal skins and furs were used to make many household items and clothing. A similar farm community to this at Butser probably existed at Tidgrove Warren Farm. Tidgrove Warren Farm. The name comes from the rabbit warren that was built here in the Middle Ages to provide rabbit meat. There were many such warrens on the downs around here. The farm is today farmed as a countryside heritage site. The farmer noticed when ploughing in certain areas that pieces of pottery, building material, and the odd Roman coin came to the surface. In November 2003, to find out more about the site, the Southampton University Archaeological Department were asked to carry out a geological survey. The survey showed that there was indeed features beneath the surface of the field. In August 2004, we began the preparations for the full-scale excavation. Tools and equipment, along with other essential facilities, arrive on site. The large marquee is erected and the whole site made ready. The 2003 geophysical survey print shows where there may be features of interest. Chris Stutt, the dig director, positioned his excavation trenches at these 4 points. Raleigh Place, the farmer, and Chris Strutt start the dig by removing about 40 centimetres of topsoil in each of the trenches. Chris keeps a sharp eye on the digger to ensure it doesn't dislodge any important archaeological features. With most of the topsoil removed, Keith Whiteman, an experienced metal detectorist, scans the spoil heap to see if he can find any metal objects or coins.
Following the excavation of 4 trenches on the Roman site at Tidgrove Warren Farm, I went round with my metal detector searching over the spoil heaps, and these are some of the find. These are a selection of Roman nails found on the spoil heaps. There have been literally hundreds of these nails found throughout the whole of the site. They are extremely common. Another interesting find was a very small Roman coin which has been pierced at the top. You can see the hole has been pierced through it. It's my belief that that was used, series of those were used as a form of bracelet or necklace. These are actually quite common. The Celts and the Romans tended to use old coins.
The bottoms of the excavated trenches are scanned for signs of metal, but in this case markers are placed for later investigation by the archaeologists. The students and volunteers arrive on site. The first task is to remove the remaining topsoil to expose the natural chalk surface, and then to square the sides of the trenches. They're still finding odd things as they move the topsoil. And now they can start troweling away the surface to find the real underlay. Now, with the trench bottoms cleaned, darker features are clearly visible. These ditches and pits correspond with those shown on the geophysical printout. By the end of the first week, good progress has been made. Week 2 saw the arrival of 6 of the participating local schools, with a further 2 in week 3. In total, some 300 school pupils took part in various aspects of the dig. Alison, one of the Southampton team, conducted students round the trenches. The students working in the trenches explained the features and finds in that particular ditch or pit. Everyone gets a distinct impression of the very slow, painstaking process of carrying out an archaeological dig. And here they can see some of the finds that have already been found at this early stage.
What we look for when we start doing this, we look for that kind of stuff. What we're looking for at the moment isn't actually, well, we are looking for artifacts, we are looking for bits of pot and bone, but mostly we're just looking for different colours in the ground.
Pupils had an opportunity to take part in field walking to look for surface finds. Here we see Dominic from Southampton University rejecting everyone's high hopes of having found something brilliant.
Oh yeah, it's probably a bit of another...
Other pupils took a turn at sieving the spoil heaps.
Stop.
I think it's just a piece of stone actually. Yes, it looks as though it's serrated on the edge there, doesn't it?
Yeah,
See
that's
that?
what I thought, yeah.
Another vital job undertaken by the pupils was washing the items of pots, bone and tile that had been found.
And you don't get paid! Where'd you get?
Here in the site shop, pupils were able to buy small souvenirs of the visit with their pocket money.
My sister asked if I could get her something. The Roman soldiers are £1. I want to get that. I won't be able to get it here, then I'll tell her there won't be any left. I know. What's that?
We haven't really found much from either end. It's just bits of bone from this side and bits of bone and everything's apart from there. So there's not much in there, but it's still rather interesting. It sort of runs under there maybe. And it may be narrowing a little bit here. But
Towards the end of the second week, careful excavation, layer by layer, revealed fragments of pottery and bone. The shape of the ditches cut into the chalk were also becoming more apparent.
it's been
double pipe and...
This particular section of Trench 1, the ditch had a lot of Iron Age and early Roman pottery fragments. To accurately record everything about the site, archaeologists have a very well-established system. At the start, the whole site is surveyed and pegged out in a grid of squares. Drawings are made of the grid, and all the archaeological features are inserted in great detail. As the dig progresses, finds are washed and numbered. The numbers show in which ditch the item was found and at what level in the ground. When all the data is analysed and the finds dated and identified, we will have a clearer picture of how this ancient farming community lived and worked. At the end of the third week, the dig has made good progress. We've been incredibly lucky with the weather, which has been dry, although very windy. Almost all the trenches and pits have now been excavated. And the process of cleaning and recording the details of the pits and ditches is well in hand. We still have school visitors to admire the works. Alison is taking a break from school duties to do some real work. Now we're down to very detailed, painstaking work with paintbrushes and small scrapers, revealing small items in the ground. The National Heritage Open Weekend coincided with the dig at Tidgrove. Raleigh Place agreed that the site should be open to the public for this weekend event. Over the 2 days, some 500 people visited the site. Sir George Young, our local Member of Parliament, and the Mayor of Basingstoke were among their number. Chris Strutt, the dig supervisor, conducted numerous tours of the site, explaining the significance of the features and the finds that have been made. Thanks to the Nationwide Building Society, who sponsored the community bus, many less mobile visitors were able to visit the site in comfort.
I didn't know it was going to be me. Well, hang on. I can push your... It's not too bad.
The plastic trackway across soft ground made access easier for wheelchairs.
Number of interesting features, especially this gigantic pit here, must be what, about 3 feet across. Again, we haven't excavated it yet, but it's...
Salvete pueri, sum Tiberius Claudius Vitalis, Centurio Tertia, Principes Prior, Legionis Quattrodecimai Gemenamati Agritricis, et Coventina Matrona. Equipment, then again, when was war ever...
Children and grown-ups were fascinated by our Roman soldier and his wife. The array of typical Roman artifacts and the selection of food they would have eaten prompted many questions. The answers to these were detailed and very interesting, except when given in Latin, of course.
There you go. Take it off.
Whoa. What do you think, eh? Look at that shield.
Stand back.
Wessex Archaeological Trust set up a number of educational activities to help children and parents understand the project.
We're now coming to the end of the dig season at Tidgrove, and I'm going to ask Chris Strutt, our dig director, to take us on a tour of the trenches and point out what he's found.
On the basis of the results of the geophysical survey done in 2003, we opened up 4 trenches over the area of the Iron Age and Roman farmstead, both over the interior enclosure and some of the more external features downslope from the main nucleus of the site. This trench, number 1, was located over both the outer ditch that we can see here and the enclosure ditch of the settlement. Work is continuing in the outer ditch at the moment. There's been a lot of late Iron Age and early Roman pottery found in this ditch. There appear to be at least 2 phases of the ditch. The initial cut was a very, very steep-sided defensive ditch, probably to keep animals and livestock out of the settlement area. It appears the original ditch silted up and was recut, as you can see in the section. The enclosure ditch is deeper than the outer ditch. It goes to a depth of at least 1.2 metres from the top of the natural chalk and is a V-shaped profile. The fill is also different. There are not a lot of ceramic material. There are a few pieces of Iron Age pottery and some bone. It appears to have been backfilled with chalk rubble, either from the site's natural chalk or part of a building that has been pulled back into the ditch. The return of the enclosure ditch, which featured in Trench 2, shows that the profile of the ditch is very much the same in its entire perimeter. Again, we have a depth of 1.2 metres and a V-shaped cut into the chalk. The fill of the ditch does not demonstrate a lot of ceramic material. Again, it's mainly filled with chalk rubble. We've removed all of the fill to reveal the cut of the ditch into the chalk. The cut itself tapers slightly into the middle of the cleared section. A number of features occur inside the enclosure. The most prominent is this large pit, marked by the 5 flints around the rim. A large number of packing flints were found in the fill, as well as some late Iron Age and Roman pottery. The depth of the pit is not particularly large. This does indicate the amount of truncation that has occurred on the site due to modern ploughing practices. In Trench 3 we have a number of interesting features. Here we have a narrow gully about 30 centimetres across and 20 centimetres deep, running across the trench for about 4 or 5 metres. It runs out of the trench on either side and is probably a slot associated with the late Iron Age building. A later phase of the settlement in Trench 3 shows in this large ditch. It runs from the edge of the trench and meets and cuts the earlier gully. The fill of the ditch contained a lot of animal bone and mainly Roman pottery. Most of the bone was that of a cow that had been put in the ditch at some stage. The ditch has a U-shaped profile and is about 1.5 metres across and around 60 centimetres deep. The ditch we are currently excavating continues under the balk and then runs for 10 metres. It then turns through 90 degrees and runs for another 50 or 60 metres across the field, turning again, forming 3 sides of a fairly large rectangle. In Trench 4 we can see the return of the ditch we saw in Trench 3. The ditch narrows and is slightly shallower and reaches its terminal at the far side of the trench. The fill of the ditch is slightly different to that found in Trench 3. We do have some ceramic and animal bone from it, however. The side of the ditch has been badly affected by modern activity of rabbits burrowing into the side of the feature. Next to the ditch we have a number of potential pit features, such as this one here. It's around 80 centimetres across and so far has gone down about 60 centimetres. We have a number of wheel-thrown pottery fragments from it, probably late Iron Age or early Roman. We've put out a selection of the finds from the excavation over the last 3 weeks on this table here. Now, Lucy Britt, who's with me, has spent a lot of time washing, cleaning, organising and cataloguing the finds from all of the trenches. Pottery, the animal bone, and also the small finds and the metal finds.
The bones here all came out of Trench 3. They're parts of a cow, we think. This is obviously the jawbone, and here we have another jawbone, although the teeth are missing. This is probably parts of a leg bone. Here's a selection of the metal finds that we've had coming up. This one here is a nail, probably a roofing nail. That's also a nail. This one here is a hobnail, probably came out of somebody's shoe or boot. And that's a bit of a buckle. These 4 pieces came out of Trench 1. They're all Iron Age. This is a piece of a storage jar. This is a cooking pot with an inverted rim. These 2 pieces are also cooking pots. These pieces here are also from Trench 1, and it's basically more Iron Age cooking pots. This piece came from the topsoil in Trench 4. It's late Roman. This suggests that, in fact, a lot of the later stuff has actually been destroyed by the plough. It's possibly a piece of Samian, although we're not too sure at the moment. Right, these 2 pieces here are 2 bits of unstratified building stone. They're not local, which is quite interesting. And these pieces here, this is actually a possible piece of amphora. And that came from Trench 3.
Chris, thank you very much for that extremely interesting tour. Would you now like just to sum up the season at Tidgrove?
Yes, I mean, in summary, we have a definite late Iron Age and Roman farmstead occupying the hilltop over there. We have a number of different phases within the settlement, a large amount of ceramic material and very well preserved bone coming out of a lot of the trenches that enables us to date the features to the late Iron Age and early Roman period. This, of course, is in addition to the late Roman material that's been coming up in the plough soil that shows the level of truncation that's occurred to the site over the last 100 or 200 years. It's definitely a well worthwhile site to keep on investigating. There's a large amount of material there, and it can tell us an awful lot about how people lived on farm sites in this area.
Thank you very much.
All good things come to an end, and the site is now back to normal, ready for the next stone curlew nesting season.